You are watching the Tim Kreitz Adventures channel. Welcome.
So, why have I always found rockets and missiles so interesting, and why would I travel 400 miles one way into White Sands Missile Range in the New Mexico desert just to take a bunch of photographs of old rockets, missiles, ICBMs, and target drones? I think it all started when I was about 10 and was given a textbook entitled Aero Science. It was a gift from the personal library of a family member who worked in aviation. He could tell I was enamored by anything to do with flight and wanted to encourage me in pursuing a related career. Well, fate had other plans, and I've spent the majority of my working life thus far in visual arts and music. But aviation has always been a passion and a part of my life, from flying ultralights to building rockets to a side business as a commercial drone pilot. And this book, Aero Science, by the late Ted Meisenheimer, still one of my most sentimental possessions almost 40 years on, is where it all started. But more about this book as we proceed. Right now, on to Missile Park. The first thing that attracted my attention as I entered Missile Park was a building displaying the signage V2 exhibit. I got so excited that I rushed inside without even taking any pictures of the exterior, and as I opened the door, was immediately astounded. This V2 rocket has been on display here since the late 1940s, but was completely refurbished about 20 years ago and placed here in its own temperature-controlled building. Named Vergeltungswaffe 2, which directly translates to Retribution Weapon 2, these rockets were among the most important war prizes the US brought home from World War II. I first learned about the captured V2s and the program that was built around them here at White Sands in Meisenheimer's book. Now here I was in the presence of a White Sands V2. I had to wonder if the one in the book could be the same one I was now photographing. The displays in the park are too numerous to feature in detail in this short video, but comprise some of the most important scientific and technological accomplishments in U.S. military history. Among them are the MEM-104 Patriot missile system. It was designed to defend against high-performance air targets and became world famous during the first Gulf War conflict. The system could simultaneously acquire, identify, track, and destroy multiple targets, including tactical ballistic missiles. Also of particular historical significance is the Honest John rocket, a surface-to-surface unguided rocket used as long-range artillery. It was developed in part using V2 technology. The rocket could carry a nuclear or conventional warhead and was used for close support of frontline troops. Its launcher was mounted on a standard Army truck, making it very simple and mobile. It's also one of my personal favorites because this was my first model rocket as a kid. Meisenheimer's book had an entire chapter dedicated to amateur rocketry and its importance as a learning tool, and I used the education angle as a successful ploy to get my parents to buy me model rockets. Thank you, Mr. Meisenheimer. The Pershing I missile and its successor, the Pershing II, along with a mobile launching system, are also on display at Missile Park. The Pershing II is often credited as the nuclear missile that ended the Cold War. It was so accurate that it was fired from a base in Boise, Idaho, and accurately hit a target area at White Sands of less than 150 square feet. Deployment of the Pershing II ended with the INF Treaty. The Soviets were very, very scared of this missile, and for good reason. The park is also rife with target drones, sounding rockets, and other experimental research platforms, as well as launch systems. Here are just a few. The Nike Hercules was successor to the Nike Ajax and was the second-generation air defense missile system for the U.S. It was capable of carrying a nuclear warhead and blasting whole formations of aircraft out of the air at once. In testing, it even successfully intercepted short-range ballistic missiles. Here's a true rarity, the Lark. Development and testing of the Lark began in 1944. It was designed by the Navy as a defense against Japanese aerial suicide attacks, the kamikazes, in the Pacific. The idea was for an observer to remotely guide the missile to its target via a radio link. Further development testing was conducted at White Sands after World War II, but other technologies quickly rendered the Lark obsolete, and it was relegated to missile history. The Crossbow was an air-to-surface missile designed to home in on targets such as anti-aircraft batteries and other things on the ground that would be using radar. The missile was supposed to follow the radar beam to its source and then destroy it. Its stubby wings and turbojet engine gave it a relatively long range for its time. This U.S. Air Force photo shows one mounted for launch from the wing of an early jet bomber. And here's one of the wilder missile designs on display at the park, the Douglas Genie. It was an unguided air-to-air nuclear rocket with a 1.5 kiloton W-25 warhead. It was deployed by the United States Air Force for almost 30 years until 1985, though production ended in 1962 after over 3,000 were manufactured. Here's an Air Force photo of an F-106 launching a Genie from high altitude. The Genie could quickly reach Mach 3 in part because of its motor, which produced over 36,000 pounds of thrust. A myriad of other systems are on display at Missile Park, but as I said, I won't go into detail on them all. Here are a few more highlights before we move on to the grand finale. Finally, I'll conclude this video with what NASA often refers to as the Model T of the U.S. space program, the Redstone rocket. Designed by Dr. Wernher von Braun and developed at Redstone Arsenal, this was once the Army's largest surface-to-surface ballistic missile. It could deliver a nuclear warhead to targets 200 miles away. Later, the Redstone was used as the first stage of the Jupiter C, which successfully orbited America's first satellite. Redstone boosters were also used by NASA to send Alan Shepard into space in 1961. The historical significance of the Redstone cannot be understated. And that brings me back once again to Ted Meisenheimer's textbook, Aero Science. I first learned of the Redstone right here in this chapter on this page. Being in Missile Park, I literally felt as if I was walking through the book page by page, but in real life. And in a way, I guess I was. Was it worth the 800-mile round trip? To me, totally. I would do it again tomorrow if I could. I hope you enjoyed this little departure from my usual style of content making. We'll see you next time.